First story. I 23 female walked in on my dad 47 male, and one of my best friends 24 female, having ex don't know what to do. Apologies if this is kind of all over the place. I am still trying to sort out all of my feelings. My dad raised me as a single parent. And he's pretty much the greatest dad in the universe. He's my best friend. And we do everything together. Hobbies. You name it. He's always the one I go to for advice to vent. Very approachable. Kind-hearted. Understanding. Open-minded. Anyway. Too long didn't read. He's awesome. While I was growing up, he had a few short relationships but nothing that lasted more than a month or two. He always told me that I was the only girl for him. But to be honest, I think he never really got over my mom died from complications in childbirth. My friend Jess, not real name, is also one of my best friends. We met at university. And have been very close for years. Always had each other's backs. Always been 100% honest with each other. I am not currently in a relationship. But if I was ever to get married, I'd always thought Jess would be my mo. So anyway, this past weekend, now that quarantine is winding down Canada, I brought 3 friends up to our family cottage for the weekend while the weather is still good, and because we're anticipating having to go back into social distancing mode once schools reopen. The same weekend, my dad and his cousin, who share ownership of the cottage with a third cousin, were also up there fishing. It was actually a total coincidence that we were up at the same time, didn't know we would be today, I learned this past Thursday. It's a really big cottage though, so no biggie. There's tons of room for everyone. Dad's grandparents were loaded. A good time was had by all until Saturday night, when I woke up at like 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom. But noticed a light on downstairs. And heard people talking. Decided to go see what was up. Only when I got to the kitchen, I was greeted with the sight of Jess riding my dad. I bleach PLS. I freaked out. And ran back to my room. And I was basically crying. I think. I am not too sure, to be honest. A minute or two later, my dad came up to talk to me. Apparently they've been doing this for over a year. He said that she initiated it. Which I do believe, because Jess has always been a bit promiscuous, if I am being honest. And like I said, Dad hasn't really been with too many women since Mom died. And my friends always tell me my dad is attractive. He also said they've never done anything before when I was around. But they hadn't seen each other since quarantine started. So when they realized they would be up at the cottage at the same time. Well, yes. He told me he would put a stop to it if it made me too uncomfortable. But that he really likes her, and the feeling is apparently mutual. I told him I would need some time to process things. I drove home myself Sunday morning. And I haven't spoken to him since. Jess has tried to reach out. But I've been too weirded out to respond. I think I find it especially weird because Jess and I look very similar. To the point that we're frequently mistaken for sisters. My other 2 friends who were there have no idea what happened that night. And they're also looking for answers. But I haven't said anything to them about it. I don't know what to think about all of this. My dad and Jess are basically my 2 favorite people. And they do have a lot of interests in common. I am also realizing in retrospect that my dad has seemed happier this past year than he has in a while. And that Jess hasn't been involved with any other guys the whole time. Which is unusual for her. I know the age gap is big. But ideally I would like them both to be happy, but at the same time it's just ugh. I just really feel weird as duck and kind of gross about the whole thing. Please help. Edit. To all the people asking if it's possible my dad is attracted to Jess because she looks like my mom. I dug out some old photos of my mom that I haven't looked at in years and wow. I never made the connection because they have completely different hair. But yes, Jess is the spitting image of my mother. She looks more like my mom than I do. In the meantime, I've told both of them I want a few days to myself before I see either of them. And they're both very understanding. Both have also independently told me how sorry they are, and that they will stop seeing each other. I will make an update post once I've had a chance to talk to each one in person. Thank you all for the well wishes. Too long didn't read. Walked in on my dad and friend banging. Apparently they've been doing it a while. And are possibly in a relationship. Other info. When asked if she still wants to be friends with Jess after all of this, I would definitely still like to be friends. I just don't know if this is too weird or not. Like, not only is she ducking my dad, but I saw them. Am I being selfish? I can say for 100% certain that Jess would never have wanted to hurt me. When asked if her dad Jess planned to be at the cottage the same weekend. Yes, I asked that night, and he says he honestly had no idea. He only found out we would be there a few days before when he called to ask if I'd take the dog for the weekend. Update. 1 year later. Hi. So I don't know if anyone remembers or cares about this post I made last year. But I said I was going to update and never did. Well, there's been some big developments since then, so here we are. First off, updated ages. I'm now 24. Jess is 26. Dad is 48. So after a few days after my first post, I met with Jess again in person, and we talked about what happened. Basically, she and my dad got talking at my birthday in 2019. They're both big fitness nuts, and Dad had been looking to get into rock climbing, which Jess does. So she offered to take him. And eventually I guess they ended up as sort of an unofficial couple. The whole time they'd been together they both felt guilty about hiding it from me. But she kept going because she'd never felt as good about any other relationship than she did with my dad. And I believe her. She usually gets bored of guys and moves on pretty quickly. But during that whole period I don't recall her seeing any other men. Which in retrospect was a bit odd. Anyway, they used the lockdowns last year as a convenient excuse to try and end things between them. But then later on, when they saw each other at the cottage, it just sort of clicked back into place, leading to the inciting incident. Jess apologized over and over and said it was never her intention to hurt me, especially not the way I found out about them. She also told me after I left they broke up for good and would not see each other anymore. We both got very emotional and cried. She was so afraid that she'd completely ruined our friendship. But honestly, I was afraid of the same thing. I love Jess so much and I didn't want to lose her either. So we agreed to put it behind us. Then a little while later I talked to my dad again. And we made up too. The thing is though, I still felt pretty crappy. Because during each of our talks I asked both of them if it wasn't for the awkward situation with me, could they see the relationship continuing long term? And both said yes. I would absolutely hate to be the one standing in the way of these two, my two favorite people, being happy. So after my talk with Dad I basically told him if he wanted to keep going with Jess to just go for it. And I would try not to be weird about it. He was resistant. But I assured him I am a big girl. And I will be okay. I called Jess and told her the same thing. So they got back together. But officially this time. It was definitely very disorienting and awkward at first for my best friend to be dating my dad. But honestly, they really are a pretty perfect fit. And it just feels very natural now. So what if the two people I love most are also in love with each other? I don't see a downside. My relationship with Dad hasn't changed at all. And if anything, I feel closer now to Jess than I've ever been. The only difference is that she doesn't share details from her ex-life with me like she used to. Not that it'd even be that shocking. I mean, I have caught the live show. It took a little while longer for some of our friends and family to get used to it. Mine and Jess' friends took it fairly well actually. One of the other girls who was at the cottage with us saw my original post on Reddit and figured everything out before being told. Some other members of my family are probably still a bit weirded out. But they don't really say much. Dad's guy cousins occasionally poke fun at him. But that's the extent of it. I sometimes get questions from people who think I am like crazy or something for allowing their relationship. But I just say that they make each other happy. So I am happy for them. The only person who's still super bent out of shape about the whole thing is Jess' dad, who apparently said he was gonna go kick my dad's ass, which is honestly really funny. Because, I mean, no offense to the guy, but my dad is like 20 years younger and in much better shape. He's told Jess he thinks it's disgusting that my dad is seeing a woman so much younger than him. But Jess said her mom, they've been divorced over a decade, apparently clapped back and said that's funny because he didn't seem to hold the same opinion when it came to the receptionist at his office. Did I mention I love Jess' mom? One other thing I guess is tangentially related. I joked to Jess one time that since she's dating my dad, she now owes me one. So I wanted her to set me up with her very hot sister. I am gay. She laughed it off and said her sister's straight, but she'll see what else she can pull. Well, she actually did set me up with her also very hot co-worker, a lovely lady who I have been very happily dating for over 6 months. So, now the big update. And the reason I decided to make this post in the first place. About a week ago my dad invited me over for dinner, just the two of us, and asked for my blessing to ask Jess to move in with him. He said it was wrong to keep me in the dark for so long at the beginning, but he wasn't going to take the next step unless I was okay with it. I told him it was okay. And last night she messaged me to say he asked and she accepted. So they're gonna do it. I really, truly am so excited and happy for them. Anyway, I guess I just wanted to give anyone who still remembers an update, and to say thanks to all those who offered their support to me the first time around, including those who messaged me with advice or support. It meant a lot to me. And some of the responses I got helped a lot to process what I'd learned and seen, but also to help me realize that it's not all about me and my feelings, that there are 2 other adults here. Yes, it's an unorthodox relationship. Yes, there's a big age gap, but everyone involved is doing just fine. And it's nobody else's business if they like it or not. For me, this was a happy update. And I guess just a bit of proof that not every Reddit relationship drama story has to end up toxic as duck. Thanks again everyone. And happy holidays. Edit. A lot of people here are getting hung up on the age gap. That was never been any part of the issue for me. There was no overwhelming. My dad has no power over Jess. She was an adult when they met, and they'd barely ever even talked until she was 23. They work in separate industries. Jess makes plenty of money on her own, so she isn't using him for cash or connections. The biggest problem before was the lack of transparency, and both have apologized for that to my satisfaction. So what's the issue? My girlfriend is turning 32 next month. Is that an issue as well? Weird hang-ups. Guys, I thought this was going to be mostly about positivity. Too long didn't read. They sort of broke up. I sort of got them back together. Now they're moving in. Other info. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to address. Way back when this was all first happening, I did bring up to Dad the fact that Jess bears a striking resemblance to my mom. He hadn't noticed until then and admitted it's possible that was part of the initial attraction on a subconscious level. But his feelings for Jess now are completely separate from how he felt towards Mom. And that it's been over 20 years since she passed and he's moved on. He didn't seem to hold the same opinion when it came to the receptionist at his office. Amazing. The whole part where they're having X in the kitchen of a shared cottage is an odd choice, honestly. Maybe some subconscious hope we get caught vibes there. Or just drunk, I suppose. Good for them, I think. Or gross. I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. I don't see a downside. What if they break up? Or worse, what if they stay together? I always think about the bad where this friend is slowly gonna start changing the home around, putting her own twist on things. Photos up of her and the original poster's dad in the house. Then the original poster realizes after a couple of years that none of her mom is left in the house. She may start resenting her best friend. Years later, father dies. Best friend feels slighted that he didn't leave her anything in the will. The will is contested. It gets ugly in court. And they both now hate each other. That's the plot of a movie right there. Second story. I'm 33 female, so hurt and shocked by the reaction of the guy 39 male I'm dating. I feel in a little bit of disbelief shock with the guy I've been dating for about 3 months. Please shine a light on whether I'm overreacting or not. I'll try to make it as simple short as possible, but here it is. Went on a hike today and he decided to throw away his plastic bottle into a residential trash cans that were outside in front of the homes. As he goes over to the trash, he accidentally throws it into a green bin which is for trees. Leaves sort. The ladies crossing by saw it and called him out on it, saying he threw it in the wrong one, that it went in the other. He reacted with a response of "Leave me alone. Don't talk to me. Go away." That escalated the lady to say, "Well, the green is for the environment and you should take it out." He continues on with, "Okay, thanks for the education, now leave me alone." Anyways, long story short, I was quiet because I wanted to tell him not to even put it in other people's trash cans, because he's not right, and secondly, he should have just ignored the women, and the lady was right. He felt that I didn't have his back. And that I should have said something, and why I didn't say anything. Anyways, it pissed me off because I don't interject with stuff like that, because I felt it would escalate things even further, so I just ignored it and walked away. I pointed out to him that the women were right, but either way he should have just said something like, "Oops, sorry, I'll be sure of it next time." And let it be. But he felt that it was him being belittled by these women in public. I didn't take his back. Anyways, that's that story. Couple hours later we walked to get sushi nearby, and as we were crossing the street a car turned to cross over. It was one of those moments where she could have hit us, but she was pretty far, almost hit us. He got mad and spat towards the car. I felt so shocked at his reaction. I understood he was mad, but she was far and made a mistake. We've all done it, but didn't call for him to spit towards the car. The spit never hit the car, by the way. Anyways, he immediately noticed I was upset by the action and got defensive by saying, "So it's okay for people to point out what I did was wrong, but not okay for me to point it out." My response was that had nothing to do with what he did, and that the action was not justified. Also reminded him how there are crazy people out there, and what if the person got out the car with a knife or a gun and killed us? I know it's extreme, but it could happen. So I went to the bathroom to wash my hands and came back, but he knew I was still upset and asked if I was, and he apologized for his reaction but still continued to justify it with an excuse. I responded by saying, "Yes, I'm not happy with it, and it upset me. It was uncalled for and rude. It was upsetting and quite frankly a turn off." Then he flips out on me and says, "You know what, duck you. You put me down and make me feel bad. Duck you." That's when I was even more shocked and hurt. I immediately knew this was a huge issue. Later we sat and talked things through and told him to never ever disrespect me or curse me out again. That is not something I want in a relationship, as I've been through it and seen it in my parents. Did I overreact? If so, please let me know. I'm having doubts about him even though I really like and care for him. This will only get worse and worse. You've only been together a short while. If you're foolish enough to stay with this dude, I'm sure you'll see a lot more red flags. Hopefully you won't ignore all of them. No, you did not overreact. He's 39 years old and acts like a child. Just look at how he treated those ladies, and never put his plastic bottle in the right bin. You told him the women were correct, and then he says you didn't have his back. Then you have the whole car incident. Spitting towards it. Again he got defensive towards you for your reaction. After washing your hands he asked if you were still upset, and you told him you were, and he apologized for his reaction, but still continued to justify it with an excuse. There was no justification. You gave him your response and then he says to you, you know what, duck you. You put me down and make me feel bad. Duck you. It's a good thing you're only into this relationship 3 months, because it shouldn't hurt you to walk away from him now. And please tell me you are walking away from him. After talking with him you told him to never ever disrespect me or curse me out again. That is not something I want in a relationship, as I've been through it and seen it in my parents. But he did disrespect you, and will again if you stay. Hit like. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to our channel.